Dr. Mahathir Mohamad was the Prime Minister behind Malaysia's modern progress for over 2 decades. Some say he was outspoken, critical, and even authoritarian.
He was a kind of a Jekyll and Hyde character, Mahathir.
Mahathir is a complex person, as one close acquaintance told me. So likable and worthy of respect at times, and so ruthless at others.
He's simply the man who just couldn't tolerate any dissent.
He can be abrasive at times, but he is a thoroughly decent person.
He's not that mysterious. He's an open man. He's frank.
He wasn't doing any of this for himself. He was really wanting to do this for the country and bring it forward.
Mahathir was outspoken for his own reasons.
I'm a politician through and through, and for me, I need to see this country go on growing and be highly regarded. So if I see something wrong, I have to make my views heard, and if there is anything I can contribute, I would like to contribute. We are actually very strong. 1.3 billion people cannot be simply wiped out. The Europeans killed 6 million Jews out of 12 million. But today the Jews rule this world by proxy. They get others to fight and die for them.
He is a man who, in his recent years as Prime Minister, has made an art form of outrageous statements.
His language should be condemned by every world leader.
Dr. Mahathir Mohamad was known worldwide as an outspoken and charismatic leader. But at home, Mahathir's private life revealed a different personality.
That's my father. That is your great grandfather.
Looks like Charlie Chaplin.
No, his moustache is different. It's not like Hitler's moustache.
Mahathir Mohamad was born in this house on July 10th, 1925 in Alor-Setar, a rural town in northern Malaya. He was the youngest of 9 children. His father's first wife had 3, and then with Mahathir's mother, he had 6 children. Growing up, Mahathir was closer to his mother, Wan Mas Tempawan.
She was much more inclined towards to be kinder to the children.
His mother taught him how to read the Quran.
Qul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad, wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan.
His relationship with his father was different.
Like many fathers in that era, tended to be stern, a disciplinarian, and rather distant from the children.
My father is very strict in the sense that when we have to do something, we have to do it. We never dared to disobey him. He had only to cough when he arrives just outside the compound of the house, and we all would start going to our books to study.
He felt that education for his sons were important, and Mahathir appreciated this fact and very grateful to him.
Mahathir's father, Mohamad, was the son of an Indian Muslim and a Malay mother. Growing up in Penang, Mohamad's conservative parents refused to let him study at the free school.
They fear that their children might be converted to Christianity, but he was so keen on education that he went to school without telling his parents. It was only after some time that they discovered that he had been attending this Christian Brothers School, where the teaching was, of course, in English.
In 1908, Mahathir's father was invited to start the first government English school in the neighbouring state of Kedah. But when he arrived as the headmaster, there were hardly any students around. Mahathir's father didn't lose hope. He knocked on every door in town, convincing parents of the benefits of an English education.
He used to tutor my brother before the Japanese occupation. I used to teach him mathematics, and since he spoke quite loudly, I learned ahead of my time. I already knew his lessons when I was still 2 years behind him.
In January 1933, Muhammad took 7-year-old Mahathir out of Malay school and enrolled him at the government English school.
Muhammad Iskandar had an enormous influence on him, instilling in Dr. Mahathir the discipline, the commitment to hard work and self-improvement that became characteristic of him.
The school had a weekly tradition. Anyone caught not speaking English was fined 20 cents, enough to buy almost 2.5 kilograms of rice. But Mahathir didn't have to worry. His headmaster described Mahathir as an above-average student who was a class librarian and a serial winner of the English prize.
I like reading the magazines, storybooks, which have some stories about people who were very brave pilots who fought in the First World War. They were not afraid to die. They will do things which most people wouldn't dare to do. So this influenced my thinking quite a lot.
Despite doing well in his lessons, Mahathir recalls dreading the attention of a teacher named Mr. Hassan.
He has a habit of correcting, getting you to stand next to him while he corrects, and one finger would be ready to pinch your bottom if there is some mistake made. And sometimes, of course, you might use the ruler on my knuckles.
Mahathir's longest school holiday began on the 8th of December 1941, when the Second World War broke out in the Pacific. 16-year-old Mahathir would soon learn his most important lesson from the Imperial Japanese Army. Malaya of the 1940s was a thriving tin and rubber economy under the British, and home to many cultures. Unlike Mahathir, the majority of Malays were mostly farmers living in the countryside. On the 8th of December 1941, the Second World War reached Malaya. Mahathir's school closed. His much-desired education cut short when he was only 16 years old. With the Japanese at their doorstep, Mahathir, like most Malays, counted on the might of the occupying British Army.
We still thought that the Japanese would not attack because the British in those days were regarded as almost invincible. But then one day, of course, the Japanese attacked in Kota Baru, and they came in from Songkhla in Thailand down into northern part of Kedah. And then we started hearing the guns. We saw British troops retreating in the rain. Some of them, 1 or 2 of them were left behind, who were subsequently bayoneted to death.
The Japanese occupation proved to be a major turning point for 16-year-old Mahathir. If the Japanese could defeat the British, so could he, as he later wrote in his book. The Japanese occupation had a profound effect on the Malays. Their faith in the invincibility of the British was destroyed. The Malays were forced out of their complacent reliance on others. To survive, the Malays had to struggle for almost the first time. Food was getting harder to find. In order to survive the war, Mahathir had to become a businessman.
My father told me you better go to the Japanese school. So I went and studied in the Japanese school. But after some time, I thought it is not worthwhile learning Japanese. I still was convinced that they will be defeated and their language will be useless. So I left the school and started a small shop selling rice.
On the 12th of September 1945, the Japanese surrendered. After 3 years and 8 months, at the age of 20, Mahathir's longest school holiday finally ended.
I went to the school. I was very happy. I roamed around the buildings, and that's when I started scribbling my signature all in charcoal all over the building. And when school reopened, of course they recognized my signature, and Mr. Lin Chen Chai was one of my teachers, scolded me and told me to go and rub it out, Shadi.
Mahathir was no stranger to getting in trouble at school.
I tend to answer back. Teachers don't quite like the way I behave, because I give smart answers, so to speak.
Mahathir held 2 important office positions, indications that he'd become more vocal after the war. Mahathir was the chairman of the Literature and Debating Society. He was also editor of the annual school book. John Augustine, Mahathir's classmate from day one, acted as sub-editor. He knew Mahathir would take on a responsibility that was entrusted to him only if he could do justice to it. John also noted that Mahathir's writing came across strongly and clearly. Mahathir found his voice in school, and now he was taking it outside the school walls. He believed the Malays were generally backward, in academics and business. The Malays make up the majority of the people, but share only a small part of the wealth, something Mahathir was keen to change.
The Malays seems to be not participating in the economic life of the country. Of course, I didn't even know about the word economy, but all I knew was that they were not involved in business. Most of them, if they are in the town, they would be government servants, clerks. My brothers were all clerks working in the government service, and that's all. I mean, they, by comparison, of course, they were already poorer than the Chinese who traded in rice and sugar and things like that.
Mahathir joined several political parties at this time, including the United Malays National Organization, otherwise known as UMNO. It was also during this time that Mahathir grew closer to his father. In 1946, anti-British sentiments were strong, especially with the British plans for the Malayan Union. The Malays and Mahathir were furious.
It meant that everybody who wants to be a citizen of the Malayan Union can be without any qualification whatsoever. So I thought that this was detrimental to the position of the Malays.
Mahathir's passion for politics was stoked by the unfairness of the Malayan Union. In his book, The Malay Dilemma, Mahathir feared citizenship would make the Malays economically more deprived in their own country. So Mahathir put his words into action.
We gathered a few of my classmates, schoolmates, we gathered, we talked about this thing, and that was when we decided to put up posters. We had to do this at night because the blackout was still on at that time. We couldn't go to the printing shop to do this because we feared that we might be discovered. So we bought paper from printing shop. We used potatoes, cut potatoes, and we cut off the figures on the potatoes